on Spurs.
Ricky, can you hear us?
This is an incredible start.
It is.
He's frozen out.
He was just telling us that he's got a Windows 98 computer. I'll leave that with you, folks.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He has. But anyway, welcome to the last word on Spurs. And people are getting impatient, as you can probably see, boys, from the comments.
Yeah.
And we are in a position of a convincing win, which is something we have not been able to celebrate for quite some time. So without further ado, Ricky will be back in a minute. I'm Russ Williams. Mitch Fretton, of course, YouTuber, podcaster, is with us. And Marlon from Spurs Kings TV, back from America. How you doing, Marlon?
I am good. I've got Disney Princess this time. There was a lot of stir over my cheeks last time, so I've changed to a Disney Princess for everybody in the comments.
Excellent stuff. And Mitch, you've been making videos like you do after all the Spurs games, and I'm sure that you'll be plugging them a little more later in the show. But what did you make of the win today? Was it hugely encouraging win? Was it an expected win? Was it an unexpected win in terms of how many goals we got and overall how the team played?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, first of all, hello everyone, welcome. But I think it was a win that we needed, and I think it was a little bit of both. It was a win that people probably expected us to have, but also one that the players and us fans needed after that Leicester game. It was one we really needed to go out and stamp our authority on and have a really confident look about us. And I think from start to finish today, we were completely dominant in every area of the pitch. We were clinical as well. We scored lots of goals, obviously that being the main problem in the draw against Leicester on Monday night. So yeah, it was really, really good. But Ricky's back. That's good to see. Hello, Ricky.
Can I say, this is what happens when Spurs win quite considerably. I can't even talk about it. They refuse to let me have that moment. Welcome to the last word of Spurs. Thanks to my deputy there, Mr. Russ Williams, who can I say is the master at this thing. He does it 5 days a week. That's why I'm where I am and Russ is where he is. If you are listening for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X. We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook too. And we are back, of course, here to provide you with that reaction to Tottenham Hotspur consequently beating Everton by 4-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Lovely to see everybody earlier. I've got to say, lots of love people come up to me at the stadium saying how much they love last one on Spurs. My love back to you as well. For those that did see me, did see I was carrying my beautiful 3 years old. That's how I've been aged at the moment. And I've got to say, he had the time of his life. I did try and remind him, Spurs don't do that every single week. So by the second half, I think he was knackered from getting up. But it was an incredible experience. He absolutely loved it. And look, we're joined by 3 fantastic regular returning guests the last one on Spurs. Be ready. You're going to see these boys a lot on your screen in what we hope is going to be a much trophy-laden season for Spurs. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams is back in the house, as is the wonderful Mitch Fretton. He's doing bits now on YouTube as well. And Marlon over at the Spurs Kings. Those boys are getting about, of course, in what's going to be hopefully a big season for Spurs in the Premier League. We really genuinely hope so. You know what? We're going to start with Russ whilst I try and fix my connection in the background here. Russ, a 4-0 win against Everton. Spurs' season truly up and running with an encouraging show. Many would say against an admittedly abject Everton side. Of course, they had 14 players fit going into the game. But I thought for Tottenham, the 2 centre-backs were genuinely outstanding. That was both with and without the ball. There was actually a genuine lot of variety amongst Spurs' forward options, which we'll come on to. And a first clean sheet at home for Tottenham in 16 games. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Russ, how important was that win for Tottenham, and how crucial is that going into what we know is going to be, for some they're going to call it a dreaded double-header to come against, of course, Newcastle and Arsenal. But in terms of today, couldn't have asked for more, Russ, could we?
Well, I mean, there was a wobbly 10 minutes in the second half where it was a bit Leicester-esque away. And I thought overall at Leicester, we were pretty unlucky, really. And it didn't go our way in the second half, but we got a point and we weren't over enamored with it. But today, I mean, look, 3 points, absolutely vital. Clean sheet, as you say, Rick, something we're not used to, and it was great to see it. And apart from a couple of scares, it never really looked as though it wasn't going to be a clean sheet. And a lot of people were saying on social media and radio call-ins that Everton, you know, they were seriously under strength and we should have beaten them. Well, when we look at the starting lineups a little bit later on, I would put it to you and everyone watching and listening that they weren't seriously under strength. There were some seriously good players they had playing for them today. And they're in a bit of a fix as a football club because they just didn't play well, or perhaps we didn't allow them to play well. But the first game of the season, they were awful. Second game today, I thought they were really bad. Sean Dyche should be dreading those 2 words, international break, if it doesn't go their way in their next game at home next weekend. But enough of their problems. We've got a manager and a group of players who are still at the very beginning of a journey. And I got to tell you that my beloved was sitting on the sofa when I came in watching reruns of Casualty. That's all you need to know. I watched David Attenborough. She watches Casualty. And very smug that her football team had just won at Aston Villa. Well, we don't really care about them, but we're going to have to care about them in a couple of games. And as you correctly point out, Rick, the next 2 games for us in the Premier League with what seems like an absurd international break so early in the Premier League season. We got Newcastle away where we've shipped 10 goals in the last 2 visits to St. James's. So, you know, only the most optimistic of us, I think, would think that we're going to go there and get 3 points, let alone 1 point. But this could be the season where we start to win these absolutely essential big games to get where we want to be come the end of the season, which is a minimum of a top 4 and hopefully some form of silverware in the cabinet. And the same applies when they turn up after the international break, going for their 3rd consecutive win at our stadium, which is, I think, to all of us, even though we recognize the sensible ones amongst us, that they are a very, very good football team, 6 years into a project, by the way, and we're not even a year and a bit. But if we, you know, if we can play like we played today and be a little more mindful at the back and set pieces when we face set pieces, corners, free kicks into the box, it is an area of concern. I think if we're all honest, for all of us, but anything is possible. But I think it's step by step now, and the next big step is St. James's Park. But we're going to revel in a 4-0 win that could have been 5 or 6. Against Everton. Everyone went home happy. A lot of the players, as you mentioned, central defenders, Odobert, Wilson Odobert, I thought first half was absolutely magnificent for a debutant. Decky looking seriously dangerous. Sonny, who even I had doubted in recent weeks because he seemed so ineffective, getting a couple of goals, one of them gifted by apparently England's #1 goalkeeper. But all of them played really, really well. And Brennan Johnson is the only one that I see gets consistent stick. Is he the greatest player in the world? No. Is he the worst player in the world? No. Is he still learning his trade? Yes, in my opinion. Is Ange playing him to try and play him into some form? Yes, I believe he is. I could be wrong, of course. Does he deserve the stick that he gets? Not really, although if you're a footballer, it's more high profile, isn't it, than being a politician. And, you know, when you're a politician, you do something wrong, you make a bad decision, a couple of weeks in the limelight, and then you're forgotten about. But footballers are in the industry where they're highly rewarded and are under the microscope. And Brennan, at the moment, with a lot of our fans, is under the microscope. And I'm hopeful and confident that long term, later on this season and next season, he's going to come into his own. But he's learning the game, and he's come from Nottingham Forest to Spurs. And I know they're former European champions, folks, but there's a big difference between Nottingham Forest and Spurs in the Premier League. And I really hope that people will be a little bit more patient with him. But overall, really happy. Excuse me. And we obviously deserve to win. It's great to have 4 points on the board. If we can make it 7 points and win at Newcastle, then we really might be off to another really good start to the season. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish, as we all know.
Absolutely. Well, we do know that for sure. We do know that for sure. Marlon, bringing you in. I've got to say, look, I think many might feel that I've been overcritical of the team during pre-season up until this point, but I thought that was a really great performance from Spurs overall. You know, we looked comfortable, so comfortable really up in that second half performance, and the scoreline really showed that. I think it was well-deserved on the day. We dominated, we created a lot of chances. We were versus Leicester on Russ. Good debut for him. Son and Bissouma, good too. And just very impressive all around, Marlon. What did you make of it for you, that performance, that result? And whilst Marlon is talking, I'm going in the background to try and fix my tech issue. So it might mean my deputy over there, Russ Williams, may step back in for a second. Marlon, we'll hand over to you.
Yeah, no, but the most important thing today was I wanted a clean sheet. And that was the most important thing, because when you watched Everton against Brighton, it was kind of, they were toothless against Brighton. And if we had conceded to a goal today, I think our confidence would have been kind of shattered going forward. But besides that, the performance was great because Everton were not the greatest opposition, but we dealt with the job. And that was the most important thing. All round, we dealt with it so well. And you can't really complain about anything today. I think the biggest negative I can take from today is that it's unfortunate Solanke wasn't fit, because that would have been the game for him to get his first goal for Spurs and probably get off, and then that would have been it. But apart from that, yeah, as Russ said, Brennan Johnson, look, it's just not working out at the moment. But, you know, once the season develops and carries on, there'll be moments where Brennan Johnson will be the man, you know, like he did last year. I think he's better when he comes off the bench. But what the biggest compliments I can play today is to Bissouma, right? Because he had a lot on his shoulders after what he did and after Spurs banning him for one game. And Kulusevski, I think we was all surprised when we saw Kulusevski in the starting lineup, especially when Maddison was playing, and we all kind of went, oh, where's he playing? But you could tell Ange was like, actually, this Everton team we can get at, right? And he put 2 creative players in there, which I think done us the world of good. You can't really complain. And that, look, at the moment, I'm going to enjoy today. I'm going to enjoy this victory. I'm going to enjoy it for the next week, right? Because after the result against Leicester on Monday, I think everyone was looking for a response. And actually, this was the perfect response to the whole situation. 4-0 at home. And guess what? We scored from a set piece. So
we did.
Which is like, you have to take these moments and enjoy them. The only thing that I'll say about like Wilson Odobert, he had a good game today. But the only thing I'd say is I'm not going to get carried away because he was playing against the right back that was making his debut. But again, he's still got to do what's in front of him. And he's probably the one of the only wingers that can dribble. So that was also a positive on that note. So actually seeing him and how he develops with the team going forward, I think actually him and Solanke might end up building a great relationship. But yeah, no, more than happy. I hope everyone else is happy. And look, this show's going to be the most positive one for a while. So
absolutely. Mitch, Ange Postecoglou, after the game, and I think a couple of days ago, spoke about Yves Bissouma and how he dealt with what Bissouma did on social media, which I think we all would accept is pretty silly and naive. I don't think I've ever heard him discuss one player as in-depth as he has Yves Bissouma, his misdemeanor, how he was treated at the football club, and what he expects of him of the future, and how he as a manager is dealing with him. What did you make of it? I thought it was incredibly open.
Yeah, I think he saw it as perhaps the perfect opportunity to be able to make an example of him almost and showcase that he has these certain standards at the club. And if any of these players are going to break those standards and the rules that he has in place, then they are going to face a punishment. And I think him talking about it quite openly and publicly was his way of almost punishing him a little bit as well, because, you know, we all know how good that Yves Bissouma can be when he's on his top form. We saw it for the first 10 games of last season before that red card against Luton. So we know that he has all the talent in the world, as much as he wants to have. But if you don't have the discipline and the attitude to go along with it, you are not going to make it at that top level. And I think that is probably the lesson that Andrew is trying to put across to him. But I mean, what a way for him to answer it today with that performance. Having watched that game today and watched Yves Bissouma's performance, you could tell that that is something that was missing, particularly in the second half against Leicester, when we lost control of the game a little bit in those first 15, 20 minutes. And the way Bissouma played today, the way he was able to get on the ball and the way that he turns in those tight little spaces and gets through the lines and plays the forward passes in the central area of the pitch, that is so key to allowing us to be dominant throughout the entire game. Just because if he's not there, it's a lot easier to lose control of that midfield area, especially when we play with a more attacking approach like we did today, when you've got Kulusevski, who's sort of been given that free role to go over perhaps more onto the right-hand side and help Johnson down that flank. And then you've also got James Maddison, who again has that free role. It's almost like you've got Bissouma and then you've got two number 10s in front of him. So without that, if you had someone like, say, Pap Sarr or Rodrigo Bentancur in that role today, I think the game probably looks very different. But because Bissouma, when he's got the confidence, it's almost impossible to get the ball off him in the centre of the park in those instances. And today, like you guys have said already, I don't want to get too carried away with it, because we're playing a very poor Everton side who I think only had 14 senior players available to them. They were missing a lot of key defenders, but you still have to go out there and win the game. And as I said, it was a perfect opportunity for Biss to go and, prove to the manager that his apology is sincere and that he does want to take it seriously and he does want to have, I guess, a long-term future in this plan. And you saw it with the celebration after the goal, him, apologising to the fans and, going over and hugging Ange as well on the way back to our own half is testament to him. So he knows what he did was wrong and unacceptable. And hopefully it's the one and only time that he will make a mistake like that, because I think it happens again, then that will be him gone completely, regardless as to how good of a player he is. I don't think Ange is one of those managers that will continue to play someone that is good at the game and not really look too deeply into perhaps the morals and things that have gone on behind the scenes away from the football pitch. So yeah, really, really impressed with Biss today. And I hope that he can keep that up. I just want him to do it consistently across the whole season, because he's such a good player if he can. Yeah,
absolutely. We all want him to do that. Ricky has got serious internet problems. So we'll just press on until he pops up with that manic stare that he's been giving us tonight. Well, obviously, we're going to talk about a great result, Marlon, in depth, and we'll look at the starting lineups and talk about individuals and what have you. This is not negative. I think it's a reasonable question. In a good performance like that, what areas did you see that Spurs could improve on, or there is still a weakness?
Well, if we're being completely honest, I think it's the set piece. You can still see, look, you saw when Everton had those three corners back to back, there were still problems defensively. No one really took control, and it was kind of like if Everton were a bit more confident and they probably had their first team defenders, they may have scored from one of them. And that was probably the biggest negative that I probably will take from the whole performance today, was the corners that they had. Each and every corner that Everton had today was scary. And it was that case of, are they going to score? As you can see, they literally crowded Vicario on all of them. I think it was only one, there was a free kick as well, which Vicario come out for, and you saw everyone in the stadium clapped and appreciated that he actually come out for it. But at the same time, you're looking at going, if we're going to come up against teams that are going to be better with set pieces, we just need to cope better than that. There needs to be more. Someone needs to take control of the situation, and I still think that's still coming back from last season, where no one was taking control of the situation, and we saw it kind of the way defensively that we are at the moment, like Everton at times, you know, that part in the second half where the guy comes on and takes a shot again, we're a bit all over the place. So we just need to get where defensively we're going to be as a shape, because at the end of the day, our 4 defenders that we have there is our first choice. So we just need to be better set up in those certain positions. But again, Van de Ven today, again, absolutely immense. I was worried when he got injured, but again, it's, you know, hopefully he's all right and hopefully he'll be available next week. But again, yeah, as I said, as long as we can get the set pieces sorted out, then yeah, that's the only concern at the moment. It's really big. It's bigger than what happened on Monday. But you know, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see on that one, because I think Newcastle next week is going to be the biggest test for that on the set pieces, because I think Eddie Howe saw that as a weakness for us in the last game as well.
Guys, I'm trying to reconnect here. My apologies. It's so typical that I'm being refused to speak about a Spurs win, that I've waited so long for one, and now I can't even bloody speak about them. It's just so typical. I'm trying to fix my issues in the background here, so please bear with me. Going to try and, if I can, bring you the stats in from today, because I say there was some really interesting, you know, stats that Spurs brought into that game. We had 71% possession, 13 shots, 5 clear-cut chances, and I think what we did see is a Spurs side that were really dominant overall. I do want to bring a little bit, if I can, about Heung-min Son, because, look, Spurs captain, I think there was talk after that Leicester game that maybe Sonny was on the decline. He has now become the 20th all-time top scorer for Spurs in Premier League history of 122 goals. Son's last time he scored twice in a game was September of 2023. He said during the week that his aim was to become legendary at Spurs, but he does not think he's made it yet. And Sonny, obviously, very, I think, as a person, you've got to say, is, you know, very humble, keeps his feet on the ground, which I think, again, is why he's so adored by the Spurs fan base. And said after the game that for him, in terms of the performance, he said it was excellent. I said to the players that it was everything I wanted it to be. But also, when you look back at the performance on Leicester, you've got to turn that sort of dominance into outcomes and results like this. We did that. We looked really threatening going forward at all times. We created many chances, different kinds of chances as well. I thought we really handled the threat from set pieces and long balls really well, which again is an interesting point back to what you guys just made there in terms of set pieces, which we will come on to during this show. So we have to show that discipline in both aspects of the game. He was asked in his presser afterwards about being frustrated on Monday that Spurs didn't take their chances, but he said, look, the performance was still there. I think if you perform like that, you have these first 2 weeks in terms of these performances, you can't ask anything more than to keep on producing the multitude of chances. Then more often than not, you're going to win football games. I still think it's the performance. I think once you start focusing just on the outcome, because even today, I thought, you know, we created some unbelievable opportunities and we could have well scored more. But the idea is to keep your level of performance up. I think that's what you do from week to week. Don't change your approach. Keep on looking for goals. And we haven't changed our approach. And again, that's an interesting point we've got, of course, Arsenal and Newcastle to come about the way Spurs want to approach. He said, we went out wide, we went through central areas, we made some fantastic straight runs through the middle. I think Maddison had one opportunities a couple of times. I think that's part of it as well. If we can become a team that's just a threat and not individually, I think that will help us. Set pieces, another one. QT is unbelievable in the air, and we usually have some good delivery in those that can help that kind of thing. And was also asked about the transfer window. And he said, I think we have spent our money wisely so far this window. The players we have brought in are going to be fantastic for this football club. We'll see when he was asked about more deals. There are still a couple of players we will look to move on and we'll stay alert. Mitch, I am trying in the background to get our stats up from the game. But overall, how pleased were you by the dominant nature of Spurs? 71% possession, 13 shots, 5 clear-cut chances. Was it everything you wanted from a display that we were craving maybe after the second half of that Leicester performance?
It was. It was like I mentioned it while you were trying to sort your internet out, but it was the perfect reaction to what we wanted to see compared to what happened in the Leicester game. It was just attacking wise. I think I can't remember which player said it after the game. I think it might have been James Maddison, but he mentioned that in Ange's talk before the game, he said that he wanted the players to go out there and be ruthless. And that's exactly what they did. You know, you don't win too many games 4-0 across the entire season. I know Spurs have done it on occasions at home over the last couple of seasons, but it's really, really nice to get one of those under your belt in the second game of the season, and particularly in the first home game of the season, because I mean, obviously you can read into it as much as you want in terms of, you're playing Everton, who maybe are one of the poorest sides in the league. And, we were maybe playing with a bit of a bee in our bonnet after how the result went on Monday night. But at the end of the day, we had a very, very positive performance. Getting the likes of Sonny on the score sheet is really, really important early in the season, because he looked, I think, a little bit frustrated and upset with himself after the game on Monday. So for him to turn up at home, obviously walk the boys out onto the pitch as captain and then score 2 good goals as well, that is going to do the world of good for his confidence, because we know how good he can be when he is playing with his head up rather than looking down at the ground. So that's brilliant. And as Marlon said, it's just a bit of a shame that Solanke wasn't available for the game today, because it's certainly one that I think he would have thrived in. So yeah, it's just all round, it's positive. I know we had that 10-minute spell maybe leading up towards half-time where Everton got themselves a foothold in the game, but when you're always going to come out in that second half and you're being 1 or 2-0 up or whatever it may be, if you do that and you come out, obviously the next goal in the game is so crucial. And at that point the game goes one or two ways, doesn't it? Everton get the third goal and you sit there and you say, oh God, right, here we go, this is Spurs that we've seen so many times before. We're going to give them away back into the game, because even at 2-0, we know as Spurs fans how things can go all too well. But when you get that third goal, you breathe a sigh of relief and you sit back a little bit and you're sat there thinking, okay, I can actually enjoy the rest of this now. And it's really, really nice to do it. And as we've talked about already, with the run that we've got coming up with Newcastle, with Arsenal, I do think that today's game and getting 3 points was imperative, because as much as I want to sit here and say that we're going to get 6 out of 6 points over the next couple of games, it's going to be very, very tough. Notoriously, we struggle quite a lot at Newcastle away. And as you mentioned, Arsenal vying for their third win in a row at our stadium. So hopefully the games go our way. But of course, we'll be prepared if they don't. And it looks a lot better saying, if we perhaps get through the next game and we're sitting on 6 or 7 or 8 points, rather than if we'd have drawn today's game and then lost the next 2, and all of a sudden you're 4 games in, you're on 2 points. That's where the anger and the negativity starts coming in. So just all round, all over the pitch today, I thought everyone was very, very good, bar maybe Johnson didn't have the best of games in the final third. Again, I'm really trying to refrain being too negative of him, because I know Ange really likes him and I really, really want him to succeed. But hopefully he develops as the season goes on and gets better with the team and just finds that touch in the final third to score us goals and get us assists, because his numbers weren't too bad last season. So
yeah. Oh man, I totally agree on that. I am going to attempt, guys. I'm now relying on 5G. Wi-Fi is completely gone, so we are relying on 5G. I'm going to try and show you these stats from the game to show you Spurs' overall dominance. Spurs 70.9% possession to Everton's 29.1%, 13 shots to Everton's 10, 7 shots on target to Everton's 1, 5 shots off target to Everton's 3, block shot Spurs is 1 to Everton's 6, and then in terms of the total touches in the box, Tottenham with 33. Everton with 25. Goalkeeper saves, the 1 for Vicario. Pickford at the other end with the 3. Aerial duels 1. Tottenham in favour of 10. Everton 14. Fouls committed, Tottenham 11. Everton 15. And then corners, Tottenham dominating those proceedings 12-5. What we are going to quickly do... We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. It's chaos here. It is utter chaos. What is going on in the show? I will just say there's over 4,000 of you that are attempting to try and watch this live. I think you guys have got a better chance than me of getting on the show the way it's going at the moment. We're joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams. We're joined by Marlon from the Spurs Kings. We're joined by Mitch Fretton. And can I just say, the second half performance, I know you won't believe this on this show, the second half we hope is going to be a bit more comfortable, condensed, the way Spurs showed us in the first half. So we're going to try and flip it round on the podcast here. Russ, I'm going to come over to you. Spurs, hopefully this is going to work. We did make 3 changes for this game against Everton. Obviously, before the game, we had the announcement from Ange Postecoglou that in such typical Tottenham fashion, that Dominic Solanke, who not only never missed a training session for Bournemouth last season, is now out for Tottenham. And as we understand, will be fit for that North London derby against Arsenal. It understood to be touch and go for the Newcastle United game. Yves Bissouma came straight back in to that Tottenham side after serving his one match in full suspension from the football club. And Dejan Kulusevski, who I think we all thought was going to be in the team for Leicester, was back involved for this one alongside James Maddison. Heung-min Son switched to the centre of the attack, while there was a new signing being paraded by Spurs making his debut in Wilson Odobert. I know many excited by his display in this one and what's got to hold for him. He received his £30 million move from Burnley plus his work permit to start this one. Brennan Johnson on the right, as we touched upon. So it meant Spurs lined up, Son up top, through the middle with Odobert on the left and Johnson on the right, Kulusevski on the right of the midfield three. So that team read, for our listeners on audio, Vicario Romero, Van der Venadogi, Kulusevski, Bissouma, Maddison, Johnson, Son, Odobert, with subs of Forster, Dragoshin, Spence, Davis, Gray, Sarr, Bergvall, Werner, Richarlison. And I'll make that point I said at the very top of the show. Everton came into this game with only 14 players fit. And in typical Harry Redknapp style words from Sean Dyche, down to the bare bones, Harry Redknapp style.
Sorry,
Russ,
I don't accept that. Don't accept that. Can you put that graphic back up there again of Everton?
Of course I can. I'll try to on 5G.
Sorry,
Go on, Russ.
I know technically it might be challenging. Look, Pickford, Keane, Tarkowski, Mikhailenko, Garner, Decore, Jack Harrison, McNeil and Calvert-Lewin. That is a team packed full of good Premier League football players, some of them very good. Sorry, I just don't accept that they're down to the bare bones. That's their problem. We beat Everton Football Club today, who didn't play well and deserved to be beat. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. 1 minute you hear Calvert-Lewin's he's going to be leaving the club. You know, there's all sorts of things like there is in this transfer window, which I'm still a firm believer, incidentally, should be over before a bloody ball is kicked.
Should be shut for when else. Totally agree. Yep.
Yeah. So they're not that bad. And that underlines that in this home performance with a clean sheet, 4 goals, could have been 5, could have been 6. Overall, we were so much better than them. But I think if you asked, Rick and everybody, an independent football fan, Spurs at home to Everton, who do you think is going to win? 85% plus would go, well, Spurs, almost certainly. And they would have put us in their acca and they might be celebrating. But it's the next games, the next 2, as Mitch was talking
that's what
about.
we'll find out. That's what we'll find out.
Record recently at Newcastle, and I was there for the 6-1 thrashing. It was depressing. Then we go up there. We're going to, be a lot better. We shipped 4 last season. Would any of us put our house on us getting a win at St James's Park? Probably not, because we haven't been shown the evidence against the big teams. That's what I'm saying, Rick. And the same goes for that lot of your Liverpools and your Man Cities and your Man Uniteds. In these big games, for us to win a trophy, and Ange wants to bring success to our football club, and we all want it. We all know in our heart of hearts, it's not about Everton. It's not about Bournemouth. It's not even about Crystal Palace. It's about those big clubs and how we do against them, and that will define our season. And we got 2 huge tests coming up, and I pray we get 6 points out of 6. I really do. I don't want to sound negative. I'm not. I want us to win. I would love us to win both of those games. But recent history and the way we play, not just under Ange, but under Conte and even Mourinho, we didn't do well. We have a mental block, it appears. And, we've all got to do a Uri Geller maybe and send out some positive vibes, because if we can beat Newcastle, I tell you, that game against Arsenal at our place, anything could happen. And, it's all about pushing on, isn't it? Pushing on, grabbing the points, get over the line. But if we lost both, guys and girls, if we lost both of those games, it's in the manner that you lose. If you're swept aside, conceding loads of goals and it's embarrassing, everyone gets angry, and they'd be right to get angry. But if the gods of football conspire against you, some dodgy penalty or goes in off Saka's bum or something, and we lose a game, we're all sensible enough, most of us, to know that that is the rub of the green. But we've got to make that rub of the green go for us. That's all I'm saying. Absolutely. And today, it was no contest, absolutely no contest from the first minute.
Yeah, I totally agree on that point. In terms of the first half and the way Spurs started, there was an early chance for Romero, but he volleyed it straight at Pickford. And to be fair, it was all Spurs in that early openings, you've got to say. Son's effective shot, pushed away again by the flying Pickford. Odobert actually started the match with some really nice touches out on the left. Romero with a ball over the top to Maddison, but his shot was safe from Pickford. And then moments later, Johnson's heads across the face of goal from Maddison's cross. To be fair, it was a really dominant early period for Spurs in that first half. And they've been accused sometimes at home, Spurs, of not starting fast enough. But to be fair, they did come out the blocks. I think they showed Everton really what they were looking at with their intent. I think that's what we want to see. From a Spurs side at home, all you want to see is that the intent was there. And I tell you what, coming over to you, Marlon, if I can, the intent, well, we all saw the intent from Yves Bissouma. An absolutely incredible strike. Nearly took the net off Yves Bissouma and probably gave, Ange Postecoglou the best apology he could actually ask for in that terms of the game itself. And it was a rocket, really, from the shot that bounced off the crossbar, following great work from Kulusevski. It was quite funny, obviously, before the game, Ange said, you know what? It's like when you try and punish a child. They're doing it right for the next 2 days. That was the case. Time for redemption. Is that the best possible Marlon response from Yves Bissouma, just to rifle one like that in what was an absolute cracker of a strike?
No, it was the perfect response, and I think a lot of Spurs fans were ready to chuck Bissouma underneath the bus as well a little bit. I think the knives were out for him, but actually, when you look at the performance, okay, he started off a bit shaky, but as soon as that goal went in, he took control of that midfield, and that's probably been the question that we've always asked about him, especially parts of last season where the first 10 games he was running the show, and then he could just kind of dip. But today he showed exactly why Ange is probably going to put the faith in him just one more time. And he's probably on the last chance saloon as well with Ange, because as Russ pointed out earlier, and Mitch, they basically said that's the first time we've ever seen Ange talk about an individual in a press conference, and Bissouma, it was a lot about Bissouma and his behaviour. But you could see that hug after he scored was the perfect response, and the goal, as they say, it's his first goal for Spurs, I believe, as well. So you cannot ask any more. But what was quite interesting in the build-up was the interchange between Kulu and Brennan Johnson. So even though we're all sitting here saying Brennan Johnson had a bad game, actually he was heavily involved in that first goal. And it was the interchange between him and Kulu that opened the space that then when Bissouma ran into it, what a strike. What a lovely strike from Bissouma. You can't take anything away from it. But it was, for the rest of the game, you could see Bissouma was with confidence. He was trying to get on the ball. He knew that, and once, because obviously he also knew that he didn't have Sarr in there today to help him, because it was Kulu that was playing as what we call the number 8 or the CM in that role, because we had 2 number 10s playing out there. So he knew he had no one else to back him up, and he was actually very good today. And I'm really, really hoping he can take this performance now into Newcastle and carry on, because if he can, Bissouma is very, very key to this whole system. And I believe when he plays well, the system works. Even if we have certain players not playing completely at their game, Bissouma, Van der Ven and Romero as a free just need to keep it stable, and then the rest will just, it just comes natural to them. And that's why to play Everton today in the form that they're in just showed us what they can do as a team. So hopefully next week, I know we keep talking about next week already, but hopefully if Newcastle don't get a result tomorrow, it's a case of this man could be very, very, very important to the OR away form. And I think as well, we missed them against Leicester. I don't think that result actually happens if we have the Bissouma we got today. If he played against Leicester, I believe that we would have come away with 3 points as well on Monday. Because in both first halves, as you said, we've started off on fire. We've been great going, we've started off so good in the first 45 minutes. And it was the second half that's kind of let us down. But, if we can just get on top of Newcastle as well next week, you never know.
You never know. Actually, some lovely words after the game coming over to you, Mitch, from Ange Postecoglou. He said, look, Biss was good, and we know Biss is a good footballer. It's about him being the best version of himself, and he'll only get there if, as we spoke about a few times, his discipline, and that's a big thing for him. I thought it was a disciplined performance from him, and he's not just a goal he scored, but he had a really important job for us to do in there in terms of the game itself. He knew that they'd sort of play a fairly direct game, and he knew that he had to be there to mop up second balls and intercept things. He was really clean for most part in possession. Such a good performance. Big words there from Ange Postecoglou. But to be fair, Mitch, you know what? Maybe some were quite surprised by just how quickly Ange brought him back in. I mean, I was one of them. I thought he might have brought in maybe Gray or Bergvall, maybe to start ahead of Bissouma and just leave him sweat a bit on the bench. Was you surprised with Bissouma's, coming back into the game or squad so quickly, given the misdemeanor? And I suppose what a way to really repay the faith that Ange has shown him by bringing him back so early.
Yeah, do you know what, Ricky? I actually wasn't surprised that Biss came back in. I think I said in my my predicted starting lineup that I did in midweek that I with Bentancur likely being out, that I think Bissouma is probably the only person that can come back in and do that role. And it's a very, very interesting point to see whether he would have started today had Bentancur been available, whether Ange sort of didn't really have too much of a choice, because he is probably only really the player available that can do that similar role to what Bentancur did on Monday night, and that is being able to drop and play in the tight spaces and through the lines. But yeah, he is just, when Biss is on it, he is without a doubt, in my opinion, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. I always like to think back to to his final season at Brighton and just how good he was in that, and the reasons that he gave us for going in and buying him that summer. And we see glimpses of that almost in every game that he plays for us. The issue that he's had in the past is that he's just not been able to do it on a consistent basis. And I think when he makes a couple of mistakes on the pitch, his head maybe drops a little bit, and it's a bit of a confidence knock for him. But that's why I think today's performance and today's goal in particular is going to do the world of good for him. It's a really, really difficult one, because you sit there and you think, okay, so we're going away to Newcastle next week. We've got, you've got Bissouma, Bentancur, Sarr, Bergvall, Gray, Kulusevski, Maddison, that can all maybe play a central role. Who do you pick? Who do you go for in that midfield role? And I actually think that Bissouma probably has to start again for that Newcastle game. I think compare the jobs that Bissouma and Bentancur did in the respective games that we've played so far this season, and Bissouma was much more of a standout performer, in my opinion. I'm not saying that Bentancur played bad against Leicester, because I don't think that he did. But I just think that Biss has that little something extra in the middle of the park. He gives you a bit of calmness and a little bit of assurance, and you know that he has the ability to be able to, especially against a team like Newcastle, when they're going to press you really high and they're going to put all of their energy into the opposition's half of the pitch. You need someone like a Bissouma in there that's going to be able to play against that pressure and turn away from it. And while we know that Bentancur can do it, I think he's a bit more liable and susceptible to losing the ball in those areas, perhaps just in front of our defence. So yeah, he played really, really well today. You could see what the goal meant to him. And yeah, it's just a reflection of the attitude that he has at the moment and the conversations that he will have had with Ange and with the players, and that the mission for him is that he's got to get back in all of their good books, and he's got to earn his way back into the team. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think when he first came to the club, he was perhaps a bit of a formality that he would be starting most weeks, but now that's not the case with the options that we have off the bench and with who the manager is. So yeah, all in all, is a really positive day for him, and hopefully he takes that forward. And if he has a good game against Newcastle, then your argument's pretty much sorted, isn't it, when you're playing against a top team like that away from home? But we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Just bringing you in, Russ. Andrew was asked after the game, Biss hadn't scored for 56 games. Were you surprised by the goal, which was a rocket? He said, no, I wasn't surprised, because like I said, there's no doubt in his ability. He has the ability to do something special, but, he needs to make sure he does everything I ask of him. And he tries and endeavours to do everything right on and off the field to give him the platform to show who he could be as a footballer. We certainly believe in him. We're certainly giving him another opportunity. But as I said before the game, that's just not a never-ending thread. At some point, you need to cut it, and it's really up to him to keep on going. Now, I think in terms of rebuilding the trust, Russ, he couldn't have made a better start in that. Again, when you look at the fact, Biss was trying to claim that goal in pre-season as being a goal he could count on, the goal against QPR, which I think Miles was with us for on that show. I think he played well for much of that game. And the key thing now is, Russ, whether he can sustain this form and it's not just a one-off game. Because I think, look, we all know what his ability is. We saw that last season, the first 10 games. The key will be now, Russ, can he go on a run and consistently play for Spurs week in, week out? And I hate to compare him to that lot down the road to a player, but if he can make the same impact that a Declan Rice made for Arsenal last season, that is exactly what Tottenham need. You know, again, we've been crying out for, dare I say, a number 6, someone to really be a ball carrier, take that ball forward, change the game. What I liked about today being there live to watch him is that he was, like Mitch said, full of confidence, believing in himself, believing in that ability. And I think it's that we've got to see a change in him from being a confidence player to try to maintain form every single week. Big question, Russ, to you. Can he do that?
Well, $6 million question. I mean, I think the manager has handled him quite well, actually, I have to say. And, you know, I mean, it's quite telling when he said, you know, how long do we leave it before we cut the wire? I mean, I think for Bissouma, the fat lady's not singing, but she's gargling, clearing her throat. And he's got to be careful. Now, you could argue, okay, did he put Bissouma in today because he's had lots of chats with him and he's seen more effort in training, he knows what his natural ability is? Or did he put Yves Bissouma in today because Archie Gray is only being eased in to the team? We know that potentially he's a very talented player as well. I hope that it's the former, because as Mitch said quite rightly, last season at Brighton, he was exceptional. The first half a dozen, 10 games for us, he was a completely different player than in the second part of the season. And sometimes I think with players, you know, the people around them, they can believe their own publicity. And, you know, even if they know they haven't had a really good game or a couple of good games on the bounce, people around them will say, oh, no, I thought you played quite well. And it's very easy to get almost brainwashed, I think, as a player. But I think what's happened is Ange Postecoglou said, mate, to be blunt with you, we're not seeing the skills that you have. We haven't for a long while. Now you go out and do this. So you're not going to play for a game and you'll wait and see if I give you a chance to play. And I think that the chance, because of injury, came for him today. So you would hope that after playing the way that he played today, he still gives the ball away a little bit sloppily occasionally. That is his little fault for me. But the good stuff is the good stuff, and the goal was excellent. Now he's got an opportunity to maybe be with Lolo, Biss, and Maddison in the midfield against Newcastle. 3 undisputably very talented players. But, you know, being in the team and staying in the team is pretty hard. A, if you don't play well, and B, if you do stupid things that you shouldn't be doing as a pro.
Totally agree. Look, we have to keep an eye on him. Hopefully, we said before last season, this is the start of things to come for Biss. So, like I say, Spurs 1-0 to the good. It was soon 2. Son scoring after pressing really high up, catching Pickford in possession. Great running from the Spurs captain, all the way from the left flank to really pick the keeper's pocket. I mean, Pickford was really being terrorised all game from the Tottenham fans. It's fair to say, from England's number 1 through to England's number 13, 14, 15. I'm not sure he enjoyed that trip to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That's fair to say. But again, it really shows you with, you know, players that if you do apply pressure, then, you know, you've always got a chance. And I think that's a great thing. Sonny did apply that pressure. And then we'll have a bigger segment on Son. But what I like is Steve Wilson, who for some will be catching much of the day after the show and in the morning as well, said Spurs probably had tougher training sessions this week. I mean, I just wonder, coming round to you, Marlon, how important was it, that second goal of the game? Because I think, you know, after Leicester and the magnitude and the way in which we let that game slip by not getting the second goal, if the Spurs got the second one so quickly after the first?
No, do you know what? And I sat there nervous on my seat when we did go 1-0 up, because I was thinking, how are we going to get this second goal? And when Son, you know, he does that. Actually, to be fair to him, he, no matter what time he does it, wherever he plays, he will always make that run and press the keeper. Most of the time, the keeper that usually gets away with it. But today, Pickford just got caught. And we probably needed that second goal to give, because obviously after Monday, you're thinking, look, if Everton do get back on top and it's only 1-0, there's that serious lacking. You know, the players are going to start creeping in, going, "Will this happen again?" And you don't really want that. And that's the key thing. So when Son does nick it off Pickford and puts it in the back of the net, I think not just the fans but the players are relieved too. To go, actually, we've played. Look, the football in the first half again, like I said earlier, was great. But you've got to take the teams apart and you've got to put it in the back of the net. And if you're not scoring and you are only going 1-0 up, Spurs have this tendency then to allow teams to come back on them. And that's the worst thing that we do. So if it was only 1-0 going in and Everton, did end up coming back into it, as we said, that when they started the second half, it did get that chance. The doubt starts to creep in, and that's the last thing we would have wanted. But no, it was such a relief when Son did finally get the touch and just touched it around the keeper. And Pickford for me is if that was in an England shirt, he probably doesn't make that mistake. If it's in an Everton shirt, he always tends to make it. So brilliant for Son. And Son's performance today, I think, for me, I'm still questioning whether he's going to be better centrally or out left, right? So it was good that he got his goal centrally. It was also good that he got his goal from the left as well, right? And I know we'll talk about that later, but it's just a case now of hopefully the team can see if they can get that second goal, we can start going on to teams. And that's all we need to do. When we've got this much possession and we're putting that much pressure on teams, we need to start having that killer instinct. And that's what happens when we get the third and fourth. But, can't fault it. Brilliant that we got the second goal. And then we were able to push on. And, the confidence just shone through. You could see it. And we didn't allow Everton then to come back in the game. And which is like a perfect response to Monday.
Totally agree. There was a concern straight after Spurs got that second goal. Micky Van Neven's knee really jarred as he got his foot stuck in the ground, was in a lot of pain. And I think as Spurs fans, we were all massively concerned at that moment, thinking, not now, not losing Micky just before, of course, we have Newcastle and Arsenal on the horizon. But thankfully, got back to his feet, came back on the pitch, and half-time closely followed. And to be fair, I think going into half-time, there was many, many positives. Spurs really, on the whole, you'd say Bissouma and Kulusevski, probably the standout players in that first half. We're going to come on to Odobert shortly. You showed real glimpses of promise during that. There was a good save from Vakari at the start of the second half after a misplaced pass from Odobert set Everton away. And then we saw, of course, at the start of that second half, Richie and Sarr on for Kulusevski and Odobert, both players coming off to get a real good ovation from the crowd. It's probably the perfect time now to bring in what we thought of Odobert. Before I do, we are just going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. We have got over nearly 4,000 of you that are watching this show live as I attempt to wrestle my Wi-Fi connection. I really generally do. I might not be as pristine looking for you guys on YouTube right now. It might mean just an eclipse of me at the moment, but hopefully you can still hear me as the gremlins try and drag me down. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams. I'm joined by Mitch Fretton, of course, now back on the YouTube scene. And we're joined by Marlon at the Spurs Kings, who is always around the Spurs community. A reminder for those out there, if you need reminding, that we are delighted on Last One on Spurs for yet another season to be backed by NordVPN. Nord, I could do with them right now. I've got them plugged into the background somewhere here. Give you the opportunity to get, for you at the moment, 4 extra months for free on a 2-year plan. It is no risk with Nord Save That Money guarantee. I know what you're saying. Ricky, put the bloody thing on. I'm trying. But you can scan your QR code right now for that. Like I say, Nord have been a long-term partner of ours over the last 3-4 years. We've really enjoyed working with them. I'm sure for many that go up and down around the world, watching Tottenham and around the country, it gives you an opportunity to obviously switch your location settings to be able to watch a lot of your favourite programmes in the destination of your choice. We're delighted to work again with Nord for another season. So make sure you check them out. NordVPN.com/LWOS. Right. It is time to talk about Walton Odobert because I think many were getting really excited by what was a first display for him. And Russ, the only way I could put it for me was kind of going back to the Aaron Lennon days where we finally have got a winger that makes you get off the edge of your seat and makes you believe something could happen. And it's something special, I think, when you've got a bit of pace in the team and someone that's unpredictable in what he's going to do. Maybe we'll work on the end product, don't get me wrong, but from a first glimpse, Russ, what did you make of him? Because I think again, looking in on him, I was really impressed by him. And I know, again, he's young. I know, again, he comes with a big reputation in terms of the price tag, but first impressions, Russ, what did you make of it?
Well, I mean, the first half, I thought that he was very impressive in the first 15 minutes when, well, let's face it, after the first 5 to 6 minutes, we should have had a couple of goals, really, but we didn't. But we all know what happened after that, so it's fine. I mean, I just thought he looked like somebody who was extremely confident, flattered that he'd been brought into the club, no doubt, by Ange Postecoglou. And with the greatest respect to Burnley, playing with a lot of very big name players, that I think he grasped the nettle and thought, right, I'm going to show them what I can do. And, Sonny, we see him so many times on the left, making crosses into the box through his own canny skill. And I think that this is only the beginning of that kind of performance for Wilson Odobert, because he's a highly rated French kid. If Vincent Kompany liked him and put a lot of effort into him, there's a very good chance that he's got an awful lot to offer. Ange said that he was on their radar from pretty early on after the season ended. So the scouts had obviously been watching him. And, it is a joy. You're quite right, Rick, that when we think back to the days of Aaron Lennon, who ironically, as we know, played for Everton and did pretty much the same for them, to have the ability to go past people and just to run. Pace equals panic in defenders. If you're running at them, they panic. Oh, they panic, baby. And that's what we want. This is a sort of player who the end product could be better, but look, he's only played, most of 90 minutes for us. But these sort of players can open up big teams and their defenses when I'm not so sure that Timo Werner really, even a peak Timo, is possible of doing that. And I think back to a very famous goal that Aaron Lennon got, Chelsea at their peak, White Hart Lane, cut inside, smashed the ball past Terry and Co. in the back of the net. Peter Cech or whoever it was, grappling for nothing. And that is magic. And if we've got some speed and magic in Wilson Odobert, then I think we've got an awful lot to look forward to. But, he's one of, as we all know, a number of younger additions to the squad. And, credit to the manager and the people behind the scenes wanting to get players for the future. I think we all, if we're honest, still feel that a couple of finished articles would really have made a big, big difference in terms of us being able to challenge for stuff. But these kids could come good. People were saying, oh, Bergvall should have played today. He's only 18. And this lad is young. But because Sonny was playing down the middle, essentially, there was a spot. And so it was him or Timo. And Ange went with Wilson. And he didn't let him down.
I got to say, if I can bring Mitch in there, I got to say a point here, just so you guys know it's not my fault. I've just had a text drop on my phone. Virgin Media, there's an outage in your area. How lovely they announced that to me as I come back bloody home from the football. You're telling me that now? I'm playing on 5G trying to make this work. What's going on here? Can I just say, we've had about 4,000 comments that have come in. I'm so sorry, guys, we're not sharing the comments on this show. To you, one of the people on audio, this will mean nothing to you. You'll just think this is a normal show. So the people that are watching this live, they're thinking, what is going on? Right, he's Ricky, 5 minutes behind. Everyone else talking. And why are we getting no comments? I'm so sorry. Mitch, make us feel better. Talk to us about Odobert, because to be honest with you, answered after the game, a really exciting debut. Like I said, he's different from any other winger that we've got so far at the club. He goes at the opponent, and if he wasn't successful and he went in again, I think it's exactly why we brought him to the club. I mean, he's 19 years old, first game for his new club, in front of 60,000. Yeah, I am really excited. And I think he makes the point there when he says about, even if he wasn't successful, he's put it down to the fact that, look, the kid is, 19 years of age. It's a big money move for him. But I know, Mitch, that on social media, it doesn't take a lot to get us excited. I think when everybody saw, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, the 30-second drop from Tottenham, get him in the team. And I think that was an excitement about the team, right? Because he came into the side and it was something different. We noticed Victor Werner. I think after 12 months, as Russ put it so politely, we know what Timo Werner's about. We've seen it for 12 months. Give us Odobert. We got Odobert. What did you make of him?
Yeah, well, I was one of those guys. After watching the training clip, I was like, I've seen enough. Get him in the starting 11. Look, I think the fact that Ange did start him and put him straight into that lineup says it all, really, doesn't it? Because, you know, he could have very easily kept Sonny on that left-hand side and put Richarlison in up top, or he could have had Timo Werner starting on one of the wings, but he didn't. He put 19-year-old Wilson Odobert on the pitch, having only had a couple of training sessions, having been at the club for less than a week. That shows that, well, one, Ange is not afraid to make those big decisions and put someone that, although he may be young and raw, who he believes has the talent on the pitch because he believes that he can perform. And I think in that first half, he did. I thought he was excellent. I think the majority of our big chances in the first half came from that left-hand side. And to be fair to the Everton lad, I think Nixon or whatever his name was, I think he actually had a pretty good debut for Everton. There were a lot of times where he matched Odobert, but I think actually he had something so different to what we see. So you've got on the right-hand side, you've got Brennan Johnson, who we know can also beat his man on occasions, but he always looks, I feel, Brennan Johnson for that cross, that early cross, getting the ball into the box. That's his main objective. With Wilson Odobert, it is about getting past his man. His instinct and his primary objective is to beat the man that he is facing up, and then he worries about who's in the box and who's around him afterwards. And, you know, like you and Russ discussed, he is very Aaron Lennon-like, and he just has that old school style of play about him. And there aren't really too many wingers that are like that these days because of how technical the game is and what most modern managers expect of players at this top level these days. There aren't too many players out there that just thrive on having one-on-one situations and rely on pure pace and being able to drop the shoulder and dribble past their player. I know you could argue that maybe Timo Werner is a similar style of player to him in the way that he likes to use his pace to get past someone. But I think all it took today was 55, 60 odd minutes of Wilson Odobert to show that he is a much more of a dangerous threat than what Werner is. And that is, of course, one of the reasons that he started on the pitch. So overall, I was really, really impressed with him. I'm very intrigued to see how it works going forward, because I think it did kind of fall onto his lap a little bit today with Solanke being out. We know that if Solanke's fit, he's going to be starting in that striker role. So Son is likely going to be playing on the left. So where is Odobert going to have? I saw reports on social media this week that Odobert trained primarily on the right-hand side this week. So maybe he is perhaps going to use him as competition or even a replacement for Brennan Johnson. Who knows? But hopefully there's loads more minutes for him to come, because I was really impressed. And although he didn't necessarily deliver a goal or assist or whatever it may be, there is an exciting player there. And I mean, you were in the stadium, weren't you? Like, it's just, I would imagine that the sense of the crowd and the environment around him when he picked up the ball, I heard it a few times through the screen, the noise levels went up a little bit, and people were sitting on the edge of their seat because they know that he's going to try and go at his man. And that's one of the good things that we love to watch about football, really, isn't it? So
you summed it up, Mitch. There was an anticipation that something was going to happen when he got the ball. And I think that's such a lovely feeling to have. Marlon, if I can come to you just on Odobert as well to get your points on him. I think what I would say is in the first half, I was really impressed by a lot what he'd done. I think brilliant at taking players on. I think the only thing that was really missing was finding that man. Again, that will come in time. He's a young man. I think, again, you know, if we want the finished article now, we know what the finished article costs you. It costs you 60, 70, 80 million. And that's why we no disrespect to him. He's a £25 million signing in 5 million with Adams as well. But I think you could tell that he was gassed out before he could really, you know, in that second half, get the energy back. And to be fair, like I say, he exhausted himself in that first half. But I think overall, when you look at his overall contribution to the game, some lovely, great touches in the first half. That ability to jink past opponents, I don't think you can, you know, underestimate. Yes, he gave away the ball a couple of times, but as a first impression, Miles, was that everything you wanted to see from a young player on his debut? Could you have asked for more from him at the moment?
No, well, no, you couldn't ask for any more. And I think where it also helped him today, as we pointed out, Roman Dixon was playing at right back, who was making his debut. So at the end of the day, when Odobert comes in, he must be streaming confidence. He's going to go up against the guy that's never literally kicked the ball in the Premier League. So it was great to see that he had the confidence to get on the ball, dribble, and what you saw from the team, and I don't know if many people saw this, the reason why most of our good stuff was coming down the left was because actually the team trusted him when he got on the ball and what he was doing more than they were trusting what I could see, right? And don't know how true. Look, I'm just look at how I saw it. They trusted him more than they were trusting Brennan Johnson on the right to deliver. Look, the final ball will come. It was the same with Aaron Lennon. As you've all made that comparison, I remember when Aaron Lennon first broke in the team, his final ball was terrible and it took him years to finally get it. But it's that point of he's going to get us off our seat. Once he gets on that ball, right, it's going to be very interesting when he comes up against, I believe it's going to be Livramento against Newcastle, unless there's an injury, and it might be Trippier. But it's going to be very interesting to the way that how people are going to come up and defend against him. And once he gets his final ball, it's going to be, he could be a very dangerous player. But as it's pointed out, if he's going to be playing on the right and you're going to have Sonny on the left, it could be kind of the front three we were kind of hoping for that's going to be dangerous. Because look, at the end of the day, Ange came out after that Newcastle game, after the one, I think it was the 1-1, and he basically said that he wished he had 3 Sonnies. He's got his striker, and he may have possibly just found his right winger, right? So, look, Odobert, it looks like it's going to be a great signing, but let's just take it week by week before we just start going over the top. I want to. Look, I'm here wanting to go over the top. I really want to go over the top. But the wingers that we've been starving, look, let's be completely honest. The wingers we've been starving over the last 2 years, none of them are, look, we've all been complaining about it when it comes to Kulu, when it comes to Werner more with the finishing, and when it comes to Brennan Johnson, Solomon. We wanted someone who could dribble, beat their man and run. And what Odobert has shown today is exactly that. And that's why we are kind of as Spurs fans going, well, actually, this kid could be actually the answer to what we've all been asking for. And I'm looking forward to it. At the end of the day, I'm going to enjoy him while he's here. And hopefully he does get the chance to play more games in the first team. So come on, you Spurs, as they say. Has Ricky frozen on us again?
Do you know what? He has. I've never seen his hair sticking out of the back. Rick, you need to push your hair down at the back, mate.
I know, Russ.
That's it, lovely.
The good thing is, for the YouTube audience, I'm so pixelated right now, they can't see me, so it's fantastic.
Oh,
Only you boys can see me in HD, which is fantastic. Many people might argue they'd rather have this view than the other view. I don't know, it's up to them.
Okay.
I will come round and also make that point, obviously, with Odobert showing that promise. In the second half, Spurs made that double change. That double change was Richie and Sarr on for Odobert and Kulusevski. Richie, for him, he came on, he got some much-needed minutes up front, put himself about. I mean, didn't see a huge amount from Richie, but again, given very limited time, you feel maybe in the potential game against Newcastle, we will get more time depending on the fitness of, obviously, Dominic Solanke, which we'll get more of an update from Ange in these coming days. Sarr came on. There was some mobility to his game. There was a real confidence in the way he played. But again, you feel with Sarr just really edging his way back in. I think what you would say with Sarr back end of last season, you'd say he made the midfield slot his own. So I just wonder whether this season he might have to have a bit more of a battle on his hands. He's got Archie Gray there. He's got Lucas Bergvall there. I'm not sure if it will be as easy as it was for Sarr last season to maintain a spot. So that's an interesting one. In terms of Kulu's numbers during that game, because again, I think he's been brought up as a fairly decent performance from Dejan Kulusevski. He had 67 minutes played for him, 1 assist, 4 chances created, 2 out of 4 successful dribbles, 1 clearance, 3 ball recoveries, 3 to 5 ground duels, 1 foul committed. And I think it was an all-action deliver performance from Kulusevski. I think maybe you would argue for many that we need to see Kulu on a real more consistent basis to see really if this guy is going to really take it on as a Spurs player. I think that's the one thing with Kulu. We see flashes of brilliance, but we haven't seen with Kulu so far is the consistency to give us the confidence that he's deserving of a place every week. I just wonder, like I say, this season, with the likes of Odobert, who's a promising talent, whether Kulusevski can find that room in his game and whether Ange maybe does deploy him more as a number 10. Because again, I think what we saw in pre-season is that he definitely looked like he favoured that position. Of course, 3 goals, 3 assists from there. So we'll be definitely interested to see what Ange does. But this is breaking news for you. No, I haven't got my internet fixed at the moment, but Spurs scored from a shot outside the box and from a set piece in the same game. Yes, it did happen. It did happen. From a corner. Can you believe it? First home game of the season. Romero on his 100th appearance for Spurs, heading home. He powered it in off the crossbar from Maddison's corner. And, I've got to say, before we come on to Romero, just a bit of a segment on James Maddison, because, again, a player that we've got really genuine high hopes for. Mitch, coming over to you. I think it's fair to say Madders a really busy display in that first half. Tied up a couple of early chances. Had one himself when Romero put him through. I think there was such anticipation with that free kick that I'm not saying that moments like that change your season, but it just, I think that if Maddison banged that one in, I think for him as well as us, we would have thought, God, he is really, truly back. Of course, that one went wide of the target. But what do you make overall with James Maddison? Because I think it looks like we're getting back the player, Mitch, that we saw in those first 10. Is that a fair assessment from me?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, if he'd have scored that free kick, I think we might have all died from shock, because it's very rare that we scored direct free kicks, isn't it? But yeah, look, I'm a big fan of James Maddison. And do you know what? It's really weird. I've seen it again today, and I saw it after a Leicester game, and the opinions and reviews of how he's been playing for these first 2 games of the season have been very mixed. I've seen people calling him lazy, seen people saying that he's not actually been that good at all. But personally, I disagree. I think he's been, particularly in the first half of both the Leicester game and the game today, he has been excellent. He's been instrumental in the work that we were doing, particularly in Everton's half today. He looks like he's been instructed a lot more often to drop a bit deeper and pick the ball up between the centre backs and sort of be the man to kickstart those drives forward. And I really, really like to see that, because he, ironically and funnily enough, alongside someone like Cristian Romero, perhaps one of the players that will have no problem trying to play those dangerous, perhaps more risky passes where you've perhaps got 2 opposition players and then one of our players in between them. Maddison will have no problem firing that ball into whoever it may be that is looking for it. So for me, he's definitely looked a lot sharper. I think the reason for it is pretty obvious. I think if you're James Maddison and you weren't getting selected for that Euro squad, or you were getting kicked out just as they go, it's a massive kick in. It's a massive blow, isn't it? It's a massive kick in the face for him. And this season is the perfect opportunity to go on a bit of a redemption arc. And, you've got Southgate's not in charge of England anymore. You're going to have a new manager coming in. James Maddison is going to want to be heavily involved in that squad for whoever comes in. And more importantly, he's going to want to be involved in the upcoming friendly, or I don't even know who England are playing in the international break. I care so little about them. But he wants to be involved in the games that are upcoming. I know how much he loves playing for his country, and ultimately your club form impacts whether you get picked or not in most cases, unless you are the big names. So I think Maddison so far has proved that he can still perform at the level we saw for those first 10 games of last season, and particularly before he got injured. He's looked, maybe I want to say, a little bit tired in the second half because of the 2 games so far. And I don't know whether that's just him getting up to speed, or whether he's just maybe phased out of games and is just having a little bit of a less of an impact because managers are making changes to stop the role that he's playing. So yeah, again, he, like everyone else on the pitch today, I thought he was really, really good. I think he just needs that goal. He needs that goal to kickstart his season. Obviously, there's a couple of assists in there, which is well and good, but I know he wants that goal to really boost his confidence to that top level. And I hope that he gets it sooner rather than later, because we're going to need him. If we want to compete with those teams around us and the big teams and look towards heading up the table, James Maddison has to be on his best form, because we lose a lot of creativity if he isn't. So hopefully he can stay fit, firstly, and most importantly, and then have an impact on us recording more 4-0 wins, hopefully. That would be nice.
Totally agree. Marlon, I'll bring you in. Andrew was asked in his presser after the game, does it feel like you've got the James Maddison back because he looked so good in that game? He said, yeah, I thought Maddison looked really good. And again, really disciplined. It's not an easy game when you play against a team like Everton, because there's not going to be a hell of a lot of space in the front third, but you've also got to work defensively for those second balls. I thought he worked really well and was really good doing that for us during the game. He kind of mopped up a few times, and when they've gone long and kept the ball for us, he had a really good synergy with Wilson early on, and they worked really well together. He made some good ones too. I think the key for me with Maddison is a bit like the Biss in a different angle. if he's physically good, if he's 100% physically fit and training every day, he can produce those kind of performances. It's when that drops off a little bit that you see his performance. I think that affects him as well, as you know. If he doesn't feel 100%, there's no doubt that as a player, he's training the way I want to see him train every day, and he trains hard every day, which I think, again, is testament to Madder's character. Your thoughts for you, Marlon, with regards to Maddison? Are you confident we'll see the James Maddison of the 10 games where he was so good over a longer stretch this season? Fingers crossed.
If history is anything to go by, probably not. But I thought personally, like on Monday, I was one of those that criticised him. I thought he had a good first 45 minutes, but I thought he was part of the issue in the second half because he wasn't getting on the ball as much as he was in the first half. And he kind of, as they say, he disappeared. And it was kind of how Leicester fans summed up his career at Leicester. But today, I thought he played really well. I thought he was getting on the ball. He wanted it. He actually put decent deliveries in for the corners as well, hence the reason why we scored. So for me, I'm hopeful for Maddison. Yes, the England thing was a bit of a kick in the teeth for him, but it's not about England. It's about what he does in a Spurs shirt. And as long as he can produce the performances as he's done at the beginning of the last season in a Spurs shirt, he'll be absolutely fine. And actually, we need more of today from him in other games as well, where he's not the key focus, but everything he is doing is right. And I think that's what the key element to all of this is. As long as he's doing everything right. And I thought personally today, after how I criticised him on Monday, I thought I can't criticise him today. And there'll be fans that will go, you know, he kind of ghosted in parts of the game as well like that. But it's not about that. I think it's more about, look, he's got an assist on Monday. He's got another assist today. Right, that's what he's been brought in to do. He's meant to be the creator. I know he'll get the goal eventually, but at the end of the day, if you're creating and you're creating goals, I don't need you to score because actually you're doing the right thing on the pitch. And for me, he needs as long as he's asking for the ball and as long as he wants it and as long as he's doing something constructive with it, I've got no qualms with James Maddison. Yeah. He's a very, very good player. And look, at the end of the day, he's in a position when it comes to England that unfortunately we've got a lot of talented players in there, and the guy that he's trying to get in front of is a world-class player in Jude Bellingham. So he needs to not worry about that. He just needs to get on with his game. And if he gets picked for England, he gets picked for England. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But actually, if he's producing the goods in a Spurs shirt and getting us over the line in certain situations and hopefully playing Champions League football. No one's going to care about James Maddison's performances as long as he's playing 7 out of 10s each week. And that's what we need from him. We don't need 10 out of 10s like one week and then it's 2 out of 10 the next. Just consistently going forward, just being a consistent player. So hopefully, if he can stay well clear of the injuries, right? And that's the big key thing in this whole situation because he always starts the season off well. You can go back his last 4 or 5 years. But it's after he gets that injury, he just takes some time to get going again. And that's probably what's going to be the most difficult thing. And just keeping him fit. As long as we can keep him fit, we're going to get the performances we did today. More than happy with James Maddison. But can't complain about him today. I personally thought he played well.
Fantastic. Marlon, I've got to say, lovely words. I've got to say, I totally agree with a lot of what you said there about James there. Russ, we'll move it on to Romero. He got above Tarkowski and headed it off the onside of the bar. Obviously, it's a 100th game for Spurs. Romero has now scored 6 Premier League goals. Yeah. That's more than any defender since the start of last season. I mean, I think we're coming to that point. It's not to bring a negative on the show, Russ, that we're coming to this point of Romero's career where he's at his peak. Now, we have to say that, again, he's just come off the back of a Copa America. I think, we're coming to a point in his Spurs contract where we're reaching that elusive nearly 2-year period for him. I just wonder for you, Russ, are we at a point where we need to try and convince Cristian this is the place that he wants to be for the future? Because I look at this guy for me, and look, whilst Van der Ven was an absolute standout last season, I think sometimes Romero's performances do go under the radar about how this guy is so good. And to be fair, Ange, before the game, I've got to say, just to bring him in, Ange said before the game, look, you obviously have an image of these kind of players before you work with them. And I thought, when I first got here from afar, I thought he was top class and he's a fantastic centre-back for the club and country. But being able to watch him every day, the way he trains, the way he plays, he's got an unbelievable strong mindset, an absolute winner in everything that he does. It was really important for me last season and it's going to be really important for me again moving forward. He's one of those players within the group who has achieved things from a team perspective, and those kind of things, they are transferable. He's won a World Cup, he's won the Copa America. So he's part of a successful team. And I really think that strong influence in this group massively, massively helps. He hoped it was going to be a special day for him. It was a 4-0 win. There's some interesting words there from Ange around the fact of, a winner in that dressing room. It makes you question whether we should have maybe gone for a few more of them so far this summer. I mean, are you concerned about the future in Russ? Not to bring a downer on the show, but can you see him committing to the club where we're at right now? Or is it up to us to convince him this season this is the place to be?
Well, look, if he doesn't want to commit, and after the game, he did an interview that I read a bit of with South American media, where he talks about, I really want to win a trophy with this club. It's what we're all aiming for. I mean, he was quite, not giving the impression he was going to go anywhere. And as we know, if somebody doesn't want to stay, Angel's saying, well, off you go. Or if they don't want to play for Spurs, if we go in for somebody, he says, off you go. You're not going to get the chance here. And what I do think has changed behind the scenes at Spurs is, I don't think it's any coincidence, and I'm not particularly talking about Romero, that a lot of these players are starting to play at the beginning of this season at the standard that they started in new manager bounce and what have you, and then the appalling drop off, and we were all so disappointed. This season, they're all playing, and I think that subtly, and maybe not so subtly in some cases, Ange has said to them, if you play well, you stay in the team. And if you don't, I've got people now that I can put in your position. Even Dragushin, for one of the centre-backs, if they're not playing well, he'd love to play, wouldn't he? But last season, a lot of these players, no names, no pack drill, could turn around and look at the bench and go, nah, I'm better than them. Well, there's some emerging talent now at Spurs, and I think the manager is probably over time going to use those youngsters very cannily to get the best out of a lot of the players that we've got, and Romero is one of them. I'd love him to stay. So one of our viewers on YouTube said that he's like an armored vehicle, Romero, and I know what they mean. And he's got a goal in him. Was unlucky not to score today. Early on, as we know, did absolutely nothing wrong. Just a great save by Pickford. And I think he is the sort of player that you need in your team at the back to marshal things. And but he's got to get better, and they all have as a collective unit. And really, if we can keep him and he wants to stay, perfect.
Yep. I will just quickly ask Mitch and Marlon, maybe just a couple of words on him. We've got a bit to cover still. But Mitch, very quickly for you, any concern with Romero? Is it just a case this season that we need to show to him that we are, fully prepared now to take that next step under Ange Postecoglou and really move forward now? Because I think with a player like Romero, it's all about ambition. Same as Micky van der Ven. We need to show these guys that we are moving forward in the right direction. A similar thing what Harry Kane said when he was here. As long as I see Spurs matching my ambition, competing for trophies, competing in the Premier League, I want to stay here. It does feel Romero. We've actually got some quotes from him that have dropped in the last couple of hours, I think via his Instagram, where he said straight after the game, if I can bring them into show, my wish is to try and win a trophy. I try and get up every day and send a message to my teammates that I think it's going to be a great season and we've got a lot of games to play. That's what you want to hear. That's great words from Romero. And I think if that message can transcend through that dressing room from a genuine winner, how important is that, Mitch, for you on that one very quickly with Romero?
Hugely, hugely. And what better person to come from than somebody who's won the World Cup recently and has just come off the back of winning the Copa America with Argentina. Look, I think if you had to ask out of the Tottenham squad players who is the winner? Who is the winner? If you ask someone in Tottenham's squad who is a winner, Cristian Romero's name would probably be top of most people's list because he plays with everything, every single game. And I know that every football player's ambition is to win silverware and win trophies. I know that. But what I love so much about Romero is that he is so determined to do it with Tottenham. And those quotes that you just said there completely prove that point. The fact that he is saying that he wakes up every day and wants to make a point to his teammates and get it into his teammates' heads that he wants to win something this season. He is the benchmark. He is the standard. He has the attitude that every member of that squad, every member of that coaching staff, and every fan of the club should have. That ultimately, Tottenham Hotspur need to be winning trophies and want to win trophies. And
Totally
what better time to do it than now this season, when you've got these players coming through, you've got a brand new format in the Europa League that perhaps favours the teams that are in it from the off, because you can't get those drop downs from a Champions League. What better opportunity to do it than having a decent cup run in the Carabao and FA Cup? I think everybody is fully behind the idea that we need to put our all into those cup competitions this season. And the great thing about all of this is it seems that Romero is fully aware of it and fully is on board with that idea. That obviously, I'm not saying disregard the league and all of that side of things, but the silverware is the priority. And for me personally, I couldn't agree more. And that's just one of many, many reasons why I love Cristian Romero so much. And I hope he stays for a lot longer than the 2 years that he has left on his contract.
Oh, man, I love that. Marlon, I want to bring you in, and I'll talk about some of the fullbacks before we brief Micky's own section before we look to close on the show. Archie Gray, Jed Spence come on for their home debuts respectively in place of Bissouma and Udogie. Gray, to be fair, used the ball well when he came on. Jed Spence brought on ahead of Davis, quite interestingly. Something to keep an eye on, I think, for the season. Davis on the bench in that, we saw Spence being deployed in a left-back role, showed some good moments on both ends of the pitch, a bit of good defending, and there was one moment where Vicario ran over to give Spence a high five as he held off Lindstrom. So Vicario, could gather the loose ball. So a nice little moment there, I think, for Spence. That'll give him confidence coming on. Busy day for Destiny Udogie, up both sides of the pitch in that more of an inverted role. He was asked after the game, Ange, about Udogie's fitness, where he said he had a sort of tightness, both hamstring and calves. But again, I think he was really fatigued last week. So as well, we're just trying to get minutes into the legs as possible to try and get him through this early period, just to get his fitness back. I haven't spoken to the medical team, but when I spoke to him, he said he just felt a bit tired. I think one thing I want to say, Marlon, before you come in on the defenders, before we get to Micky van der Ven, he said about Porro. And in general, I think Porro's had a really good display in this one that you can't go unnoticed with Porro's display. I think, again, this is a player that I think was excellent in this game. I think you look at the fact that he never really put a foot wrong defensively, pivotal from Spurs in terms of trying to play out from the back. And I think defended really well a number of interceptions that we hope now is going to really settle this, of course, back 4, back 5 down. And we go back to the point, it's the first clean sheet Spurs have kept at home in 16 games. Before we bring Micky into this debate, the likes of Spence, Udogie, of course, Romero. How important is it for Marlon that we see now a consistency from these guys? And it goes back to my point earlier to show Romero that we really are a serious team here this season.
So, and the one thing that we have to kind of remember going into these first 2 games is that Udogie, Van der Ven, Romero haven't really had a pre-season with Ange. They've literally only came in like a week before the season started. Doggie's only just come back from injury. So you are kind of still, them 3 is still probably going through a pre-season. It's only Porro that's really been about. Just quickly on Romero, when it comes to Romero, I'm a bit delusional when it comes to Romero. Even on Monday, I didn't blame him, right, for that goal, even though I know he was at fault. But the 2 things I've noticed about Romero is, so today when he scored, he looked happy. He looked happy within himself. He looked happy to be here. And that's the big key thing, because under Conte, you could tell he wasn't truly happy to be at Spurs. And the one thing that was really testament is, I believe he was asked when he was in the Copa America, and this is how the whole Real Madrid thing came out. He was asked about whether he wanted to move from Spurs, but he was so committed to Spurs. And actually, I think if he really wanted that Real Madrid move, Romero is one of those that I believe would have probably kicked up a fuss and tried to get that move this summer, but he didn't, because actually I believe he's enjoying his time with the club, and it's something that actually for now, as long as we can keep him happy, keep him smiling, and he was probably, he had an impressive season last year. He was a top goal scoring defender as well. So it's just the case now of just keeping him happy. But as I said earlier, with the defenders now, Van der Ven, Udogie and stuff, as long as we can now try and get them over the line, get them fit enough, and get them, playing more and more games regularly, because that back 4 is what we're relying on going forward. And if Dragusin comes in, he can come in as well and do a job. And Spence, we spoke about him after the QPR game, and I remember I've got a lot of trust in Spence this year, and I can see with the comments that Ange's come out twice and spoke about Spence as well. And yes, it was very interesting that he was used on. Well, actually, it was very interesting that he came on the left, considering that Van der Ven finished the season on the left. and Dragushin didn't really come on either. So look, we just, as long as we can get a unit and them playing well together, I don't think we have nothing to worry about in that sense. It's more about the tactics with the defense is going to be my only concern, where we just leave us exposed sometimes with just the two at the back when we are in play. But as for a squad, as you said, we've got Europa League games coming up. We've got many games this season compared to last year. Hopefully now that with the back four and the guys that come in, the fact that we didn't see Ben Davies come on, it's just a testament to where we are now compared to where we were last year.
Yeah.
So hopefully for the next few weeks, especially when the Europa League starts kicking in as well, once we find out who we got in that, we'll start to see a more consistent basis. We'll start to see more minutes from even the squad players and see where we're at with this defense. But I can't really complain. There's no negativity towards it today. I'm quite excited to see what Ange's going to be doing over the next couple of months, and I can't wait, to be honest.
Yeah. Right, we're going to close the show on some love for Micky van der Ven if we can. I'm going to run round to him. On this show, I've fought all tech issues now. I'm running round to Russ's place. What am I doing? Russ, I'm going to come around to you on.
You've got better internet than you.
I know you have. And a better mic this one, and a better mic as well. I should try running like Micky van der Ven. We'd be all right. On Micky, look, 4-0 Spurs, great break. And you know what? Micky van der Ven, what an unbelievable run. He charged up the pitch at least 50 yards with the ball, shrugging. And bearing in mind, he was shrugging off that earlier knee pain. The guy was almost like Robocop as he went going up the field before playing in Sonny, who clinically fired it through Pickford's legs. We'll come on to Son to close it in a second, but Micky van der Ven, absolutely outrageous assist. Russ, look, we drooled about this guy last season and we said, can he get any better? And he's just run with the ball 50 yards. I mean, how incredible was that moment in the game where literally, like I say, charging with the ball up the pitch, Everton looked like they were parting their ways in absolute terror of what this guy was going to do to them.
Well, it was a special moment in the game. We all love Micky van der Ven. He's got that amazing song based on Tony Basil's Mickey, which is brilliant. And he's worthy of the song as well because he plays with his heart on the shirt. And it's about mentality, that sort of run. Can do, not maybe can do, can do. And do you remember when we were all watching the videos when none of us really, to be honest, or very few of us actually knew who the hell he was before he signed? And there was one extraordinary video clip where he was on an attack and there was a breakaway and there was no defenders and he ran the length of the pitch and cleared the ball off the line. Yeah. That is heart. That is passion. And we've got Micky van der Ven at our club. And other clubs have got very, very good central defenders. But, speak to any coach in world football, you got Cristian Romero, Micky van der Ven. I mean, we're talking back to the golden days of the Belgian boys. That's what we could be looking at. And, Cristian Romero, for me, looks far better in the all-white strip of Spurs. So you can figure out about Real Madrid. And he's happy. Marlon made a great point. You can tell when the players... not happy. Richarlison, I know he's never missed a smile. He didn't look particularly happy today.
He's always crying.
I know it's weird. But
he's always in tears.
I know. Ange was asked about him by a reporter after the game who said, is Richarlison going? What do you know? And he said, well, I don't know anything because if they decide they're going, they don't come to me. Other people come to me. So there could be something else going on. But to go back to your point, Micky van der Ven, even last season, I said, teams must look at the team sheet and go, Tottenham have got 12 players today. They're only allowed 11 because of Micky van der Ven.
Yeah, I do agree. Look, bringing you in, Mitch, on Micky, just outrageous. I mean, given the fact I said that athleticism he showed, given there was a first half knee injury and the way he just kept running and then found Son. I mean, you have to remember, Mitch, 42 million, 23 years old, absolute bargain. Right, take a bow.
Ricky, if you could have seen the face that I was making when he was down holding his knee, I
can imagine. I saw 60,000 faces that were in absolute terror, being terrorized.
I was going to burst into tears. I was thinking, oh, God, he looks in a lot of pain here. I really hope it's nothing serious. But, the warrior that he is he got back up and he carried on. And look, how many central defenders are there out there in the Premier League and in Europe, that can carry the ball from their own half, run through a field of players, and then lay it off for an assist to the striker to score a goal like that? It's very, very limited. The great thing about Micky is he's a big guy, right? And I love left-footed players in particular that are able to do this. But he is just so delicate with how he handles the ball. He passes it superbly. I think he's got that sort of trademark pass where they're playing it across the back line and he'll ping it out to Udogie on the far touchline or whoever's the winger over there at the time. And the great thing is, I think one of the things I've noticed watching him play is he could do so much with the ball. Obviously, you have your defenders and you have your defensive actions that he's brilliant at. But even when we've got the ball and we're wanting to go forward, he'll either play the pass or he'll take the ball forward and he'll go past his man. And then he'll either sprint away from him, just sprint in a straight line away for him, or he's even got the agility to turn with how tall and how big he is back and then keep hold of the ball and retain it under pressure. So he's very, very versatile in the way that he plays. And every single game that I watch Micky van der Ven play, I love him even more by the end of it, because he just... it's so rare that he makes a mistake, and it's almost a little bit unhealthy, because I'm sort of sitting there some games thinking, oh God, I really hope he doesn't get injured, because he's that good. And we saw it firsthand when he was injured, how much worse off we were. And I think one of the main reasons why a lot of people are saying we need to get another left-sided centre back in before the window shuts is because of wanting to avoid that happening again. And I just, he works so well with both Udogie on his left-hand side and with Romero in the middle. It just, on paper, that back four is immense. And I know I'm not saying that it's perfect, and there are things that we need to sort out going forward defensively for sure. But, as a lineup, as a back four, I do think it has the potential to be very, very strong if we can keep everybody settled and put a run on together. If we can keep that back four fit for the entire season, I think we will have a much better defensive campaign than we did last term. Matt van der Ven, final point on him, he makes 42 million look cheap, doesn't he? In the market these days, that's my personal opinion. He is definitely one of my favourite players at the club, and he's only been here for a year, and he missed however many games last term. So it's just fantastic, and I cannot sing his praises enough, and I hope to do so many, many more times across the season.
Oh, man. Crackers on our own there. Micky van der Ven is not just a footballer, not a defender or anything else, just a footballer. Love that. And yes, I did try and call... I saw a comment saying Vicky, and I've just called him Vicky. Can't make this up. Vicky, Ricky, it's been one of those nights, and you have to forgive me.
You broke up there, mate.
I broke up.
That was Crackers, wasn't it? He just thinks he's a brilliant footballer. Do you see what he tweeted earlier? He said, if every footballer could be like Micky van der Ven, we could have 11 Van der Vens against 11 Van der Vens, and wouldn't it be a great game? And I know what he means, actually, because he's a fantastic professional.
Great guy. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. Marlon will come in very, very quickly on him. Andrew was asked after the game what he made of Micky, and he said, look, he's just a pretty special footballer. And, last year we had that back four up and running. We were pretty compelling as a team, but we also know that we just can't keep putting them out there. And I think Romero, Micky and Destiny, they're not at their peak fitness at the moment. They missed all sorts of pre-season. So we knew sort of these 2 or 3 weeks, we just saw what it was like up to about the 60-minute mark. They really started to fatigue. And we've just got to be really careful with them, because if we can get through the international break, then once the big week game starts, we can start rotating a little bit. Because we need them at their peak of their performance. Because when they're like that, they're absolutely outstanding footballers. And in regards to, like Mitch touched on earlier, when he went down, how concerned was Ange? And said, look, obviously I was worried, but I'm always worried about my boys, mate. They're all special to me. You certainly don't want anything, particularly when it's something like that, awkward to happen. There's a real fear that it could be something, concerning in that moment. But he handled himself okay. He was fine a couple of minutes after that. He's so important to us, but they're all important. That's why we've got to try and create a squad that, where we're going, it's not just about putting him out there week upon week. It's about the team. I think it's a great point there. And overall, with regards to Micky, a great head interception tonight, Calvert-Lewin earlier in the game, string of great tackles, and of course that moment to unleashed Sonny to score a superb overall display. And I think, you know what, Marlon, it's hard to pick a man of the match in this one because there were so many good individual performances. But I mean, I think, doesn't Micky get it alone for that absolute charging 50-yard run? Literally Robocop right through the team.
Look, I've got nothing but praise for Micky van der Ven since the day he walked through that door. And when we saw that, when me and Ash were doing the clips of Micky van der Ven before we signed him, we both said that I certainly said that he reminded me a lot of Jan Vertonghen, and that comparison is always going to come out. He's Vertonghen with pace, and I was one of those that was in love with Vertonghen, but I think I've only seen Van der Ven have one bad game in a Spurs shirt, and that was obviously Newcastle away, where he just kind of went all over the place. But it was like, you know what, you can have one of those. But yeah, as you said, when he made that run, and you know what, it wasn't just the run, it was the way he then picks out the weight of the ball that he lays to Son for him to then latch onto, right? You know, we've seen other players try and do that to Son, and it goes behind, goes forward, but he just laid it in perfectly. You know, you can't, like... everyone has spoke about how great Van der Ven is on the show and on the panel, and you've seen the comments and stuff. I can't do it any more justice because he is just exactly what we are all about. As we all said, when he went down injured, we were all a bit worried. Now, the thing for me is, are we going to try and get someone in the next 10 days? So because that moment might have been, actually, we need a replacement if things really get that bad and he does get injured at some point, because the way Ange likes to play his system, that hamstring might go again. And that's my only bit of worry that might happen over the next few months. But at the same time, he's just such a talented footballer. He's exactly what we needed. He suits the system perfectly as well. And I think that's what key to all of this is that he's so perfect for the system.
I agree.
And even at the Euros, the performances that he put on for Holland when he came on and everything like that, everyone was banging on his praise, and he was playing at left back most of the time. So, you know, he's a very, very talented guy. And you know what? We've really got a gem there. You have to kind of go, you know, whoever done the scouting, the hierarchy and all that, this is one they actually got right. And you just have to go with it. And like I said, I'm enjoying Romero, I'm enjoying Van der Ven. Porro's coming into his own. Your doggy, you know, up and down like a yo-yo, but, you know, as soon as he gets fit, you know, we saw great performances from him last year. And for me, defense is brilliant. Back four, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I just think tactically, sometimes it hurts them a little bit, the way we set up. But hopefully, as the season progresses and actually as they become a unit as a four, hopefully we can see them, you know, in crunch times. Yeah, look, as Mitch said, right, hopefully we won't see that many goals conceded, but there is still that slight concern of how many goals we will concede. And I just think, if especially with Vicario as well as the fifth, we just need to just make them more solid. And this is where, and like I said earlier, this is where Bissouma is so important to the system, because he can be there to protect them, but he's also there to push the play on. So, but yeah, Van der Ven for me, got love him. Love that.
No, lovely words there. And I'd say Sonny, obviously getting the goal. I don't want it to kind of be missed with Sonny. Obviously led by example in that game. A guy that I think, you know, after the Leicester game was really kind of, I'd say to some degree, well, they were persecuted, but there's a lot of people asking about Son, whether he was on the decline and good enough for Spurs. Again, just to reiterate what I said at the top of this show, for those that might have missed it because of my internet connection issues, now the 20th all-time top scorer for Spurs in the Premier League with 122 goals. Son, the last time he scored twice was September 2023. That's a 20th all-time top scorer for Spurs on that list. And we hope for Sonny now, it's a really, really positive season. Bergwijn for Maddison, that final 12 minutes of time. Again, important for Bergwijn to keep on getting that minutes. Russell keep an eye on him for sure. For us, from our Swedish contingent there, he'll be keeping an eye on Bergwijn. But like I say, a good couple of minutes for him just to increase that experience in the Premier League. Kulusevski we touched upon back in the team. A bright return to the team for him. Again, showed himself to be a very good option in that midfield three. We've touched upon Brennan really. Again, not really a huge amount here to discuss about Brennan. Needs to work more on that final ball. After the game, Ange was asked as a final point, are you pleased with the versatility of your side in terms of adapting to a situation? Son through the middle, but he ended with 2 goals. What were your threats like all over the pitch? And Ange said, look, it's what we want to evolve into, and we're still in the process of that. We had Decky playing in midfield. Kulusevski, I thought, did really well. And Sonny scored a goal through the middle. And he scored a goal when he went out wide. I think we looked really good from a very different amount of angles, even set pieces. So if we're going to turn a compelling performance into consistent results, you need to have more than one avenue of attack. and I thought we showed that. Guys, I can't thank you enough. There's been over 5,000 of you that have watched this live. We've battled all kinds of tech issues, double intros, double duplications, multiple issues of the stats that you've seen. A final question to you all to close, if you don't mind. I'm going to start with Mitch, then Marlon and Russ to close. Mitch, we've now 2 games in. It's 4 points from a possible 2. What are your expectations for the season, Mitch, after you've seen these first couple of games?
Yeah, well, they are pretty much what I said before we'd even kicked the ball, and that is, I think, contenders for those top 4 spots. I think that is, we're definitely not the finished article yet, as much as Ange Postecoglou might want us to be. So in the league, I think the focus will very much be on that. I think it'll be close with a lot of teams around us. But I think performances like today, if we can churn them out consistently, there's no reason why we can't be in and around there for most of the season. And do you know what? Even if it is just a top 4 battle in the league this season, I just hope that we are closer to the top 3 than we were last season. Because, you know, we need to be seeing some progress. I don't like to sit here and say every season, yeah, goals top 4, the goals top 4. Ultimately, we want to be that number 1 spot. We want to be that number 1 team. But it's a very, very big gap to close. But the positive performance today reiterated to me that we are capable of being one of those top teams in the league. So, you know, as much as we should have perhaps beaten Leicester on the first game, 4 points from the opening 6, it's I think it's the same return as last season's start. So that's not too bad at all. But like I said earlier in the show, the trophy runs are the priority for me this season. The Europa League in particular, get as far as we can in those cup competitions. Hopefully the Carabao Cup and FA Cup draws are nice to us this year, and put all our eggs in the baskets of those cup competitions. That for me is what I want to see. And the vibes I'm getting from the first 2 games is that we are capable of putting up a challenge in those competitions.
It's my take goes again. It's attempting to go again. Mitch, I can't thank you enough. You've been an absolute star. Thank you so much.
Mitch,
He's gone.
you, Mitch. He's
gone.
He's gone. The 5G's got him.
You can't make this up. I'm back.
You can't make it up, Rick. Actually,
honestly,
you're right.
You really can't. I can't thank Mitch enough. Go and check Mitch out. I'll try and get Mitch in across the socials for Mitch. You've been a star. Go and check him out. Marlon, come to you. 4 points for possible 2 things that will allow me to finish this bloody show.
I think I'll just carry on. I think I know what he's going to ask. For me, look, Ricky, for me this season, I said top 6. Like Mitch said, I think we'll be around the top 4 conversation, but we're not the finished article. There's still slight concerns going forward, but for me, if we put all our eggs into the cup basket, I'll be more than happy to finish in the top 8, but take the cups a bit more. Look, Europa League and League Cup, if possible, or an FA Cup, depending on how the draw is to us. But even if the draw is not kind to us, I want us to go all out for those cups, if possible. Look, at the end of the day, look, Spurs are, you know, we're meant to be on this rebuild. It's going to be a slow one from the looks of it. We're not going to get everyone in the 3 windows that we wanted, but for now, from what I can see for the squad we have and the young guys that we're bringing in, let's just go out and go get a cup and then progress in the league probably in the next couple of seasons. But, you know, because our Spurs fans are starved. So I'm looking top 6, top 7 finish and get a cup. That's my feeling. I don't want us to put all our eggs in one basket and try and aim for top 4, because then I think that's where we kind of fall down going forward. So, you know what? I can take the up and down performances in the league, but as long as we get the cups right, I'm all good. That's me being honest and talking openly. I really just want, like, Europa League, there is a chance. As long as we don't get like a Leverkusen having the season they did last year, coming into it. But, you know, it's always one of those. But the FA Cup or the League Cup, you know, let's try and go all out. How I look at it, let's try and do a Seville what they used to do. The league weren't on. Let's go for one of the cups, and it worked for them. It's a model that can work, and you know, players love the medals and won trophies, and you know that's how you keep someone like Romero happy. That's how you can then get a Son the trophy and things like that, and then your young lads will go, you know what, I like this, and then we'll progress and want to get more and more, and that's how you turn into a winning machine. But that's where I'm at yet with how I expect the season to go.
I think you've said what we all hope for. The only thing I would say, Ricky's just WhatsApping me, so oh, there's laughing heads. Can you close the show for me? Yes, I can. All I would say is I'm not going to say anything as long as what you've said. I hope, like we all do for success, ruthless mentality is what I want our team to have. And I want it to start at St. James's Park, because when we get that, all the things that we want are absolutely possible. So anyway, an absolutely great win today against an Everton team who weren't really up to much. A couple of goals for Sonny, Cristian Romero getting a goal, Van der Ven playing well, Maddison in the first half, looking as though he's back on form. So many plus points, really. And so we hope that you've enjoyed watching the podcast or listening to it. Our dear leader, poor old Ricky, has had some terrible internet problems, unlike his three guests, of course, and yourselves who are watching us on YouTube. We might have to have a whip round, actually, and see if we can get them sorted out with something decent. I don't know. But anyway, 1 hour and 50 minutes and 49 seconds. Mitch, when are we next going to catch you YouTubing and what have you?
Well, my reaction piece to the Everton game today is already live on my channel. So if anybody fancies heading over to my channel and checking that out and dropping a subscribe over there, it would mean the world to me. But I love doing these shows. I love being on the Last Word on Spurs and being on with amazing guests every time that I'm on. So it has been a pleasure, as it always is, fellas. And it's nice to talk about a very convincing win today as well.
Yes, absolutely. And Marlon, you've been over in Florida for 3 weeks, back at the coalface. Busy times for you, no doubt. As
always, me and Ash, what's been happening in the last couple of weeks, been tuning in. We got a show on Tuesday, as we normally do, around 9:30, and then Ash has a show on a Wednesday, and then as from September, we'll be picking up some more shows. But yeah, come over to Spurs Kings TV. It is it's very different to what everyone else is doing. I know everyone says that, but come and watch it, and I promise you, it's very different.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Marlon. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Ricky. Fingers crossed for Newcastle. Enjoy the international break. Incidentally, Mitch, it's Republic of Ireland and Finland for England. That's who they're going to be playing. And my apologies, by the way, for saying it was Tony Basil and Micky Van der Ven's song. It was Casey and the Sunshine Band. But you don't expect me to know anything about music, do you? For God's sake, that was so silly. Apologies from Rick. He has not been able to come back on the show. He's had a real problem with the internet. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. It is a pleasure for me always to be on this show, and I love spending time with all of you. And so from all of us, it is a very good night. We are going to leave the studio, apparently, and it will cut off Mitch and Marlon automatically. God, it's like Mission Impossible. Have a good night or day or morning, wherever you are and wherever you're watching. And as usual, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on.